Welcome to Property Chat's Candid News and Views. And today I am extremely lucky to have none other than Ranjan Bhattacharya here.
Hi, glad to be here.
So Ranjan, thank you so much for giving up your time. I know you are super busy and crazy.
Always got time for you.
That's so sweet. And Ranjan is, for those of you who don't know, have been an investor, developer, YouTuber, a judge, property elevator, property angel.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been doing not all of this, but some of it for over 30 years.
Yes, quite a long time.
So Ranjan, tell us all about, taking you back to maybe say 30 years or so. What were you doing? What was life like before? And what made you get into property sort of like how you are right now, like actively investing?
I think property has always made sense to me. I mean, some people take time to get it, but I've always seen the logic of property. My dad got me started. He bought me a set of Monopoly when I was 8 years old for Christmas. That's when I bought my first property, if you like, but I was addicted to the game. Monopoly teaches you a huge amount about property. You don't get anywhere by just relying on your salary for passing go. You've got to buy property that generates rental income. And it's not the fancy ones, the Park Lane and Mayfair, that see you through, because people don't land on those so often. It's the oranges and the purples and the yellows that kind of do well for you. There's so much that Monopoly teaches you. And the logic of, I was obviously quite good at Monopoly, so the logic of Monopoly actually works in real life. In fact, a fascinating side fact, do you know how Monopoly was created?
No idea.
It was created by a lefty economist to show how capitalist the whole landlording system was. And she designed this game in the 1920s to expose this capitalism
culture
and landlording and property owning. But what she didn't expect, that it was going to be such a popular concept as a game and people would love to play it.
Oh my God, so it was actually meant to be a negative.
It was meant to be a lefty kind of expose on and an anti-landlording type of game, but she was saddened that it became so popular.
Well, she must have made a lot of money from it.
Sold out to Waddingtons and all of that, so she didn't make that much, but
But she was a lefty, she didn't want the money anyway, right?
That's true.
Exactly. Right, so that got you into it.
That got me into it, but seriously, I bought my first property as soon as I could. I graduated from university in 1991.
Well, you don't look old enough, if I may say
well,
so.
Thank you very much. Get you everywhere. But I graduated from university, and as soon as I got I joined a management consulting firm, Accenture, and as soon as I got my contract of employment, I took that to a bank. And at that time, even though it was a recession, if you had a good job from a good company, you could actually get 100% mortgage.
100%.
So
back in the days.
I mean, I'd actually saved the money for the deposit.
But you didn't need it.
Through share trading, and I did a bunch of other little side businesses when I was in university, but I didn't need it. And that was a very interesting time to get started in property. So the first property I bought was 100% mortgage. I actually bought it to live in, but the job that I had took me everywhere, and I never needed the place. So we just rented it out room by room. And then you quickly see that this is a good idea. So since I had the deposit, I thought, well, let's buy another one. And the early 1990s was a very interesting time, and it's very similar to how it is today, because I was actually buying property, which was the same properties was falling in value slightly 6 months down the line. And that's a completely different market and mindset to invest in. So at that time, all I was thinking of is, I don't really care about the capital appreciation. Is it putting a ton of cash flow, positive cash flow every month? And as long as it's doing that, and you can fix the debt and service it, then you're not too bothered about the short-term falls.
It's very interesting, actually. And if I may say so, I think you've been entrepreneurial from the word go, I guess, from a very young age.
Yes, usually selling things in school and getting told off and
making your pennies from it.
Yes.
No, but the young person today, obviously, there is so much competition out there. And what would you say is what people, like how does entrepreneurialism come along in your, like for example yourself? Do you feel that you were deprived of certain things and that made you ambitious, or do you think, what is it about your lifestyle that made you
Good
entrepreneurial?
question. I think there is a certain element of it's in your blood. It's in your DNA for whatever reason. And some people are entrepreneurial, some people are not. And the entrepreneur, I mean, it's. I read in a book somewhere that one test of a natural entrepreneurship is at what age have you made 100 of whatever your currency is of wherever you live.
Yes.
And you find that a lot of serial entrepreneurs tended to have done that at 12, 13. They've done something while they're at school or whatever. And because when you do those micro businesses, one of my first things I did was car washing. Then,
to make a bit of pocket money.
Then I'd latch on to crazes at school. So when people are playing with marbles, whatever, I'd find out where I could buy them wholesale. And then sell them in smaller bags to people and all of that. Then in the 1980s, did video games when I was in school, selling them in computer magazines and stuff like that for home.
Or trading them on?
No. I started writing them because I was into coding.
Oh, wow.
And then I started buying the copyright for games off other kids and then putting them on compilation tapes and discs and selling them mail order.
Wow. You're very ahead of the game.
That was my first major business, and I as soon as I learned to drive at 17, I bought my own car with that money.
With all the money from school?
I used to drive to school in the sixth form with a better car than most of the teachers. It was quite embarrassing.
Well, for them, not for you.
But and then property was, as soon as I graduated from university, because it made sense, and recessions are a time where if you have the right strategy and you do it. For me, it was just implement. At that time, I didn't know anything. There weren't any books or training courses or internet or anywhere to go on. It was just what Monopoly taught you, which is within Monopoly, you buy property on the board. They don't go up in value. It's the rent roll. And that's what the early 1990s were like. The property is not going up in value. What is the cash flow that it will generate?
And that's still relevant today, right?
Yes, very relevant for 2023.
Yeah, very, very interesting. You've had a really interesting childhood, a lot more interesting than most of us, actually. So you can tell this is going back to many decades, not just 30 years. It's more than that.
But today, I think, kids have a fantastic opportunity to develop a side hustle. Everyone should, even if people are working full-time, developing a side hustle with the internet is just amazing. Because back when I was at school, your market was limited to the kids in your school,
in your class.
Yeah. So if it was whether it was buying Kit Kats in multiple packets and selling them individually and doing it and undercutting the school tuck shop and then getting detentions for doing that, whatever it is, your market was just the school and the kids in your school. Today, the market is the entire world through the internet, and it's so easy to have some kind of product that you're trading on, set up a Shopify page, promote them through things like TikTok. It's so easy for kids to develop a side hustle. And in developing a side hustle, you go through the full gamut of running a business, from the marketing to the sales to the operations to the customer service to the delivery.
You're the one-man band, right?
You're doing it all. And then as you get older and wiser, you just amplify that and scale that.
So in your illustrious, property career, I know you've got many hats now as an angel and as all the other bits that you're doing, as a YouTuber, obviously, as well. In your property investing, just the investing side of things, what would you say have been the highlights or the pivot points, in your journey where you think, oh, your life's now taken out and you can, relax and take it a bit easy?
I think the first major pivot point, because I think the advantage I had is that I was actually in a very good career that paid very, very well. If you are, pushing trolleys around a supermarket on minimum wage, you don't actually have to do that much in property to match your salary. But if you're doing a professional job, a career, it sets your bar really high. So for me, doing property always had to be better than doing management consulting for a major league firm. and that sort of career. So that sets your bar high on the deals that you do. It increases your getting out of bed hurdle rate. So you don't do deals that don't make sense.
Yeah.
So that set my bar high. And I think the first milestone in property was when you actually find that your side hustle is actually producing more income than what is your day job.
Yeah.
And that then forces you to make a decision as to what to do.
And what was your initial? So I know you said that your first house that you bought with your, you didn't need a deposit, obviously, you got the 100% mortgage, but then you converted that into rooms. What gave you that idea? Because there was no such thing as HMOs back then.
No, but you see, HMOs have always been, they've just been rebadged. I mean, you know, they were bedsits.
Bedsits, yeah.
Then they became, and then bedsits had a bad reputation, so people renamed it HMOs. Then HMOs start to get a bit of a bad reputation. Then it's co-living. You know, it all changes. So it's just rebadged. Yeah, but multiple occupancy in a house for people starting out in life and all of that has been common for a long, long time.
And so you just found that idea and then you just implemented it in
Yeah. Because rooms is a very, very simple thing to do.
Yeah.
And it's also very cash flow generative. In the beginning, you want to, because in the 1990s, property prices aren't going up. I mean, I think a defining moment for me was watching, and I don't recommend anyone watch media because it's all rubbish, but I was watching a panorama program on the BBC, and they had a whole bunch of economists on, and this was about 1991, 92. And they were saying that property prices will never go up in the UK. We're entering a new paradigm. We've just had this crash from the late 80s, and this is going to be the new world. And I believe that. So I said, well, if property prices aren't going to go up, where's your income going to come from? Where's the payback going to come from? From property. Well, if there's no capital appreciation, the only paydays you can get are from buying from motivated sellers below market value. So you're making money when you buy, and also cash flow from monthly rental income. Now, it so happened that the BBC were completely wrong, which is not
difficult.
Which is not difficult, yes, to be diplomatic. And the third payday of capital appreciation came about anyway. But I think that taught me a couple of things. The major lesson is focus on the paydays that you can control. The paydays you can control are buying below market value from motivated sellers, you control that. How much cash flow you make, positive cash flow you make, you control that. And development uplift, you control that. Capital appreciation, you haven't got a clue when it will happen, how much, so ignore it and treat that as a bonus. Don't factor that in your equation. So the deals that you do, just the development, the cash flow, and buying below market value.
So would you say your initial sort of, say, 4, 5, even 10 years were mostly finding the deals? Was it direct to vendor, a bit of open market? What was it, a combination?
A lot of direct to vendor. Auctions were very difficult in the 1990s unless you had complete
a lot
cash.
Of money. Yeah.
Agents were also quite easy. Agents are very easy in a recession. And this is the thing that people have to bear in mind. In a boom time, they're not really interested in people who want to buy properties cheap, because the homeowners are getting very excited about being priced out of the market, and they get silly and they get emotionally attached to a house that they see, and they're always willing to pay more than an investor. So agents' attention focuses more on them. In a recession, a lot of homeowners get fearful. They have a lot of ifs and buts and hesitate about buying.
Affordability.
They have affordability. They get loan getting difficulties. So the agents, because they want their commission, focus again on investors. Because investors know exactly what they want. They know their criteria. They've got their funding in place. They make the decisions quickly, and the sales cycle is quick. It's not marred by indecision, and they can get their commission. So agents are a lot easier and more fruitful to work with in a recession.
So this is the time now then.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So now is the time, guys, get going and start speaking to more and more agents and registering with residential, commercial, whatever your strategy is. So it's really, really interesting actually that you say that. So you said you did open market, agents, and some direct to vendors as well.
Oh dear, yeah.
And HMOs. It was your main first strategy in the first few
HMOs
years.
was, I mean, in the first few years, the rules were different. So I did North London, and so you basically wanted the maximum number of rooms under one rooftop. So I bought 3 4-story houses in Islington. These were 8, 9, 10 room HMOs, and you didn't need licensing or anything like that. As soon as licensing came in, these became licensable and a bit of a problem. And in many London boroughs, they had silly rules where they said if you applied for a license, you'd never get permission to convert them back. So that's not really that good in some areas of London.
Can you do that actually? No, that was just a thing then.
That was then. So what we did was just convert them all into flats, extended them, convert them all into flats.
And they pay the bills.
They pay the bills, and that's worked out.
Even better strategy, especially now that the bills are crazy.
Well, I think yes, but it's through that, the learning point there is buy as much square footage as you can for the money.
Yeah.
Buy the biggest chunk of property you can, and make sure the price per square foot you pay is as low as possible. Because if you buy a big piece of real estate, for the same amount of money, the more space you've got, the more options you've got to repurpose it and configure it in other ways later.
One minor question in all this: how did you fund all these amazing, big, massive deals in North London?
The buy-to-let mortgage came in 1995. And before 1995, residential investment property was brought up by people with cash or people with good jobs who could persuade their bank managers, their local bank managers, to give them loans. So that was the only way you could
100% loans?
Not necessarily 100% loans, but that was generally the market. There was no such thing as a buy-to-let mortgage as it is today. So people either had to have cash or they had to have good jobs. So that's where you tend to find a lot of professionals would invest in property. And those were the days of the local bank manager. So again, because of where I worked and that kind of stuff, it was easy for me to get those loans. When 1995 came in, it became more commoditized. It became criteria, and if you fulfill the criteria, anyone can get the buy-to-let loan.
Got it.
And then the other thing that happened I think in 2001 was the advent of the self-certified buy-to-let loan, which meant that you did not necessarily have to have a salaried income.
Businessman and self-employed.
Exactly. And that was pretty much the time I quit the corporate world.
So in the 2001-ish. Oh, wow. So from then on, I know in the last few years, you've focused a lot on commercial property. And how did that come about?
It's looking at, that's a good question. It's looking at the numbers and where you get the maximum bang for your buck for the least effort. That's pretty much it, really. Now, yields became challenging in London. And I like London. London's a major
residential
city.
yields.
Yeah. Residential yields became challenging from the early 2000s. So what's the solution? Well, you can go up north. I don't want to go to Hull and Liverpool and all of that. I want to stay in the M25. I have a comfort level there. So how do you achieve higher yields in London? And that then became by taking, first of all, flats over shops, because flats over shops are priced lower, but the rent is the same. So therefore the yields are higher. So you preserve yields, and then you get into buying the whole buildings, and the blended yields from having commercial on the ground floor, residential above, mixing it up with HMOs above. So commercial mixed-use buildings, and then later converting commercial buildings to residential use. That was how you could maintain or have better yields than buying purely residential, but stay in London without going up to Hull. Yeah.
Well, it's quite sort of amazing that you managed to do that, and you did this all by yourself, because there wasn't any commercial property courses back then, was there?
I think I pretty much did the first one. I did my first commercial property training course, ran my first property commercial training course. I had 5 people on it, and that was in 2003.
Oh, wow. Because you did a couple of deals, you thought, well, I know this. I
Yeah,
can teach you to
something
it.
like that.
And I remember
I
actually.
think I'd done about 4 or 5 commercial deals by then. And yeah, my first commercial course 2003.
Actually, so that brings me on quite nicely then, because then apart from being an investor and a developer, you're also an educator. You know, do a lot of courses. Where did that come about from, and how did this, interest? Is that because of cash flow? Or you just enjoy doing it?
I think in the corporate world, when I did management consultancy, I used to do something called change management, and a lot of that was doing presentations and helping organizations change their practices, if you like. So I enjoyed doing that, and I found that doing training and education was a good way of getting that same fulfillment that I got from what I was doing in the corporate world. So what I like to do is kind of figure this out and then explain it to people in a non-jargon way that they can actually understand. And I also found it very powerful as a way of getting private investors on board, because by giving training and educating, by showing people how to do it, you're saying, look, you know your stuff.
Yeah.
So some people will take that education and do it themselves. That's fine. Some people will say, well, I've got some money, you know what you're doing, I don't necessarily want to do it, but I'm happy to invest in you.
Great. So again, takes me on to the next question. Private investors, what would you say to people who are looking to either scale up or just starting out in property, don't have much money, but maybe want to work with private investors, joint ventures and what have you? What's your sort of tips to them?
I think the big thing with working with private investors is figuring out what comes first. You've got to have the investors before the deal. A lot of people find the deal and then hunt around for private investors, which makes you look desperate. That doesn't work. So you've got to find the investors first, and you've got to have something to talk about. So, a big challenge for a lot of people is, well, how do I find investors if I'm doing my first deal? Then what you should be doing is helping other people around, helping other people who are doing deals and doing projects and getting involved in their deal in some way, and using that experience to then develop relationships with people who, my private investors were people who had money, liked what I was doing, liked me, but didn't want to do the work themselves, and trusted that I would do it. So sort of likability, friendship is a big thing, and displaying competence that you can handle the project that they're investing in you is key as well.
Interesting. So that, say, the second decade was more about pivoting to commercial property, and I know that you started doing a lot of auction buying as well, because I saw you on a course where you were selling auction secret insider deals, something like that.
That was 2010, something like that. Yeah.
So tell us about that part of your journey then.
Well, auctions have probably buy about half of everything we have from auctions. Very, very powerful, because what I find is that, particularly with commercial property, it's how do you see the deal, because not everyone sees the opportunity or the potential of something on sale at auction in the same way.
The way you see it.
Exactly. So if you see it differently to someone else, and your way is more profitable.
That's the angle. You always talk about angles, right?
Exactly. And I used to learn a lot of angles by going to, if there's a property I'm interested in, and I'm going to viewings, I'd just get talking to people and find out what they want to do with it. And I'd go to auctions, and if I lost out on a deal, or was outbid, or I was interested in something but I didn't bid, I would always go and chat to the winning bidder and find out what they're doing with it.
What their angle is.
What their angle is. Because if they're paying more, if they outbid you at auction, there's two reasons. They're either stupid, or they've got a better strategy than you. And the only way of figuring out which one is to ask them. And if they've got a better strategy. I remember seeing a property in King's Cross. And my idea was to convert it to flats, and rent them out as rooms. And I thought that was a killer strategy, because of our cash flow plan, we could afford to bid fairly highly
higher.
and win it. So I went to the auction, it's several years ago now, got outbid, and I went to speak to the guy because I thought I was paying a little bit over the odds for our strategy. He outbid me, went to chat with him, and he does short stay accommodation. So he's got a few locations already. He's already got the website. He's already got someone to run the premises. He was going to add that to his portfolio. And he wasn't short stay accommodation generally, but he had, where I was doing rooms, he was going to put bunk beds in. Because what he does is the traveller folks.
Oh, yeah.
It's the backpackers.
One-nighters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I thought that's interesting. I haven't gone that way where I've vertically stacked in rooms, but it just shows that if you've got a better plan than someone else,
you can afford to
pay more. And that's why, as I said, about half of all the properties we've bought in the last 15 years have been from auctions.
Yeah.
So that's either because I'm stupid and overpay, or at the end of the day, my strategy, my cash flow strategy for the exit is better than the next bidder, the next runner-up bidder.
Interesting.
And that's why you've got to learn this stuff.
So, so basically, I would say, if I'm not wrong, you made your money in the first 2 decades, and in the third decade, you decided to have fun with it, right?
No, well, I'm having fun all the time.
As in, like, your YouTube and...
Oh, yeah. That is all fun. That's all great. But there's no point doing a deal unless it makes some money.
Yeah.
And yes, there's a bit of fun. There's a bit of intellectual challenge. There's a little bit of beating the system and coming up with something that others don't. That's all creates a bit of excitement.
So, okay, so what now? Okay, you've got the money, you've got everything that you probably dreamed of. What is it that gets you out of bed in the morning?
Alarm clock?
I know, but not literally. You know what I mean, right? What is it that, because you are very motivated and you're still very, very active. What is it that makes you tick as a property investor, as a person? What makes you,
I like
your skip and your step?
Well, I like doing what I do. I like, and I think I'm in a position now where there's a lot of things you can do in property, and I concentrate on the activities that I enjoy, and I have people to do the rest. So it is very, very important. I mean, you talked about making money. It is very, very important to do deals that are very, very profitable, because if you don't, then you end up working in the shop on yourself, because there's enough money to pay staff, isn't it? So by making sure the deals are profitable, it gives you the luxury to focus on the activities you enjoy, you have fun with, and then you've outsourced the rest or got other professionals to do the rest.
So play to your strengths and then outsource the rest.
Exactly.
So 2023...
That keeps it fun, and if you have fun, you'll get out of bed.
Absolutely. I think fun is so important. And we were speaking to other experts and successful people like you, and they said exactly the same thing, having fun. But yeah, so 2023, I know it's doom and gloom, but I know you've talked about where the opportunities are. What's the sort of legacy that you want to leave behind going forward?
Oh, that's interesting. That is interesting. You know what? I haven't really thought about that. I don't know. I really don't know. I honestly haven't thought about it. I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's my motivation.
No, it's not.
Maybe that's why I haven't thought about it. I don't think I...
It's what you want to leave behind. It's what you're doing now.
Exactly. It's what I'm doing now.
The present.
The people around me and building relationships. And, I think we talked about having fun and all of that. It's friendships in property as well, which is so important. From that comes business and opportunities and all of that. But what leave behind, I haven't really thought about, because you're not there anyway.
You're not there anyway, right? Exactly. No, fair enough. But
who cares about worrying about what's happening at a party you're not attending?
Exactly. But all I can say, guys, I mean, I really, really appreciate your support. You come to Titans every single month and you give us some really, really valuable advice and insights into what we should be doing. And, we learn a lot from you. So really appreciate all the time that you come, you spend with us. We have fun as well along the way.
You do, yes.
And, I really am grateful for your friendship as well.
I appreciate that. It's great.
Thanks for coming today and your time.
Thank you.